My name is Joan, J-O-A-N. My maiden name is Tarsus, and my married name is Liebman. Well, my husband's name was Edward Jacob Liebman. When I knew him, he was a reserve. And it wasn't until he was called back to, after we had our, about 2 years after we were married, that I knew the Navy. And that's, every 2 years we went someplace else. But then he was, I think when he was back in Newport again, and we ended up with the fleet again, and we bought a house up there in Middletown, Rhode Island, which I still have. All my children and grandchildren spend their summers there. And that was a great experience, it really was. And that's when he was doing a lot of traveling with Congress. He would go, as I said, he went to the bases, like in particularly the Navy was building all these submarine bases. And he also got to know some of the submariners. In fact, it was very hard for a Navy officer to get into the submarine force because they had to go through the guy in charge of the nuclear submarines, who was horrible. But he knew that they would be underwater for weeks and months at a time, never surfacing. So he had to make sure that people who went into those submarines were stable and could stand this. When he was a reserve, that's where he worked from. He would go every weekend, every Saturday or Sunday, and work and do things for them. And they had an officers club there, and that's where he took me to dances and parties and everything. Well, they were closing down he went there after he was with the Atlantic Fleet. He went to Philadelphia, and we had our second baby there in the Navy hospital, and he was working and closing down the Philadelphia Navy Yard, which was very important during the war. And he was with 2 other men, one of whom was a chaplain, O'Connor, and one of whom was a young graduate from college named Lazarus, and my husband, and they were closing down the base. And then we went, and the interesting thing is the chaplain named O'Connor became chief of chaplains in the Navy later. The first time a Catholic had been chief of Navy chaplains, and he ended up being the cardinal in New York. That'll give you an idea of the level of those. They were still drafting people. And the other young man ended up being sent to Harvard Business School and became an expert on Russia. Don't ask me how. And he ended up being a multimillionaire when he got out of the Navy because he was working with companies and telling them how to trade with Russia. And the experience was very good. I used to feel sorry for the poor New Yorkers. I considered them terribly, you know, they just thought the only people in the world who knew anything was New Yorkers.